This is going to be an adventure. This is going to be an adventure because I have a series of things that I want to talk about that I'm going to attempt to connect loosely under the umbrella, under the overarching theme of this week's question of the week, which I've decided is, what is life trying to teach you? And so I'm going to talk about some older music. I'm going to talk about some new music. And hold on to your hats, kids. I'm even going to share a messed up Bible story. And I know that you all love messed up Bible stories. And so I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to try to pull this off. I'm going to attempt to wax semi-eloquent about all this stuff and somehow tie it together after we do the thing. I'm going to begin with what might become a new segment. I'm trying to introduce segments into the podcast as a way of providing some structure. And I'm thinking I might do a segment called Lyrics of the Week. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. But what happens right now is that this gives me an opportunity to talk about the great John K. Samson. John K. Samson, who some of you will know as the singer, primary songwriter of Canada's indie darlings, The Weaker Thans, which is one of my very favorite bands of all time. And as an aside, which for you Weaker Thans fans will see as kind of an Easter egg, as an aside, the drummer for the Weaker Thans, Jason Tate, is arguably the single most prominent influence on my playing, most certainly one of them. And very, very, very early on, in the early days of the John Huff podcast, which was the beginning of this podcast, Jason Tate was a guest. He was one of the very first guests on my show, and what a treat it was to be able to spend an hour in person with Jason Tate, just talking to him about his career and drums and the Weaker Thans and the whole thing. He was playing with Bahamas at the time. And when I say good things happen when you put yourself out there, this is what I'm talking about. All of a sudden, I didn't even have a platform yet. The podcast had not yet been officially launched. And Jason Tate agreed to be interviewed by me, to have a chat with me. And that's a good thing happening when you put yourself out there. Again, that's an aside. We're talking about John K. Samson. John K. Samson, who is one of the great songwriters, period. I was about to say one of the great Canadian songwriters, whatever. No, one of the great songwriters. Just an absolute poet of a lyricist. One of these cats who's got this really amazing ability to take the mundane and make it profound and make it beautiful. And his songs, his solo songs, his Weaker Than songs are full of stories, full of characters, and he somehow manages to take the experience of those characters and to take the mundane things, the everyday things in life, and turn them into these really profound, magical stories. You look at the lyrics to a song like, let's say, Sun in an Empty Room, and how he can take the symbolism of an empty room and turn it into this lament for a relationship that's ended. Or Tournament of Hearts, where he can take a person at the curling rink and that person's night and make that symbolic, tell the story of a dying relationship through curling. Really, really profound and brilliant stuff, and done so tenderly and done so beautifully. If you listen to the Weaker Than discography, if you listen to John K. Samson's solo stuff, very Canadiana, but universal in the human experience and his ability to write and share stories about characters. Profound stuff, brilliant stuff, and John K. Samson doesn't get nearly enough attention. So I'm listening this week to what would seem to be his final solo record. We'll talk about that in a minute. The album Winter Wheat, which came out 10 or 11 years ago. And I don't know, it just popped into my mind. I wanted to listen to that record, and so I did. And you can point to any song on it and read the lyrics and just be blown away. But the actual song, Winter Wheat, the lyrics to that song just really get me every time. What is winter wheat? Winter wheat is a wheat crop, a style of wheat that is quite literally planted in the fall and lies dormant over the winter, but comes up very quickly in the spring, yields a very early harvest. But winter wheat has got to be exceptionally strong and hardy to be planted out on the prairies in the fall, and very quickly the most brutal winter weather comes along, and these plants lay dormant but survive that experience. They survive the harshest thing that life can throw at them, which is, a Canadian winter out on the prairies. It's pretty much as harsh as it gets, but these plants, these young plants, are made to survive that test, to be strengthened by that test, and to pop up very early in the spring and grow into their potential, grow into their magnificence, yielding an early crop. And that itself is a metaphor, is it not, for all of us planted here in our circumstances, growing through our own winters, arising with our own spring to become what we might be. And just wonderful lyrics. And so I'm going to read to you the lyrics of Winter Wheat by John K. Samson. Woke up in a parking lot, air mattresses gone flat, the sun selecting targets for the shadows to attack. So make a visor with your hand, squint at where you're from, a lonely line of buildings you can block out with your thumb. Salute the way we tried. And no one knows we're anywhere we're not supposed to be, so stay a while and watch the wind throw patterns on a field. This crop withstood the months of snow, scavengers and blight, tuned every ear towards a tiny lengthening of light, found a way to rise. We know this world is good enough because it has to be. Allow the hope that we will meet again out in the winter wheat. Find me in the winter wheat. Where do you want to go with all of that? Just sheer, beautiful poetry of the mundane. Woke up in a parking lot, air mattresses gone flat, the sun selecting targets for the shadows to attack. Beautiful, brilliant. Make a visor with your hand and squint at where you're from, a lonely line of buildings you can block out with your thumb. You've done that, right? You're on the outskirts and you see downtown and you just hold up your thumb and you can block it all out. This is stuff we've all done, but who thinks to put it in lyrics this way? No one knows we're anywhere we're not supposed to be. Stay a while and watch the wind throw patterns on a field. This crop withstood the months of snow, scavengers and blight, tuned every ear towards a tiny lengthening of light. I love that so much. You know about plants coming up and aiming themselves at wherever the sun is. That tiny lengthening of light. That's the spring happening. That's the days getting longer. Happening right now. We're in June, the longest days of the year. Tuned every year towards a tiny lengthening of light. I just love that so much. I love that so much. It's so simple and so beautiful, so profound. We know this world is good enough because it has to be. You've got what you've got. The circumstances are what they are. It's got to be good enough, and you've got to find a way for it to be good enough. And is that something life is teaching you? Remember, we're building this under the umbrella of the question of the week. What is life trying to teach you right now? Sometimes life is trying to teach you that, like the winter wheat, you are resilient. You are hardy enough to get through the trials and emerge on the other side, to bend yourself, to angle yourself, toward that tiny lengthening of light, which is the hope at the end of the tunnel. The light at the end of the tunnel. What is it if you're going through it right now that you can hold on to? What is that tiny lengthening of light that you can hold on to and say, it's getting better? Things are improving. I don't know if that's a health thing. I don't know if that's a financial situation. I don't know if it's a relationship where things are feeling mighty low. But like that winter wheat, you angle yourself towards what is light. You angle yourself towards what is hopeful. And you just keep your focus on that. And the light nurtures you, makes you feel better, gives you hope, makes you feel a possibility. Allow the hope that we will meet again out in the winter wheat. It's just very hopeful. And this record, Winter Wheat, was kind of inspired by Neil Young, these personal stories, very Canadiana. And every song, I think, is just more characters in a weird way finding their redemption. Some of it is sad. Some of it is very uplifting. But this drive towards winter wheat, overcoming circumstances, blooming, growing in that spring, that tiny lengthening of light that comes to you. And is that a lesson? Is that what life is trying to teach you? That you are capable of enduring some of these things, strong enough to find that light and angle yourself towards it and eventually get there, find your way out the other side. It's an interesting thing, though, because as I said, this is John K. Samson's apparently final solo record, final record period, because he has fundamentally left the music business. I don't know all of the details, but this record came out in, I think, 2015. Apparently, it was a very difficult and arduous process to get it made. And then he toured on it, and he found himself having a severe mental health crisis, John K. Samson. This guy is the soul of a poet. And I think we all know that some of us poetic types can lean towards the depressive. And I don't know why that is, but it seems to be a thing. And it happened to him. And so I think he went on some medication to help him deal with that, developed kind of a dependency upon the medication, had an issue, maybe was hospitalized for that. It got to him. The music business got to him. Maybe the pressure got to him. I don't know what the exact circumstances were. Point is, he stepped away from music and has decided that he will remain away from music. The impetus to write is no longer there. He's done that work and he's moved on. And what he does now is weave. John K. Samson, known now as John Samson Fellows, he took his wife Christine Fellows' last name. He weaves now. On a loom, like old school. He weaves stuff. This guy's an artist, man. He's traded in his guitar for weaving, and I think he finds that, I don't know what he finds it, but it does something for him on a soul level. And that's a lesson, too, that maybe life is trying to teach you. Like maybe it's time to give up that thing you're doing or beating your head against the wall for, or is no longer serving you, whatever that is, a job, a relationship, a hobby, a career, friendships, who knows? And maybe you're doing a thing that served you for a period of time, but has reached a point now where it's damaging you and it is not serving you anymore. And maybe you're just reluctant to let go of that thing. And, we know that adage where it hurts harder to hold on to that rope. It hurts more to hold on than to let it go. Maybe that's a lesson that life is trying to teach you right now. That thing you used to love that nurtured and fulfilled you no longer does, and you can't let it go, and now it's damaging you, whatever that might be. That was the case with John K. Samson, and he said, I'm just done. I'm just done with it now. Funny thing is, he has begun to pop up every now and again and do just like an acoustic show somewhere in Winnipeg where he lives. And that started with he wanted to show his weavings at a craft fair and somehow wound up playing a couple of songs to support that. People got wind of it, and Weaker Than's fans were flying in from all over the world. We want to hear John play. And he's like, this isn't what I wanted. And so he's obligated to do some Weaker Than stuff. But he's like, okay, maybe I'll do that once in a while, but just locally. We're done. We're not touring. We're not making new music. We're not doing anything like that. Once in a while, maybe I'll bring out the acoustic and play a couple, Weaker Thans are a fantastic band, quintessential indie rock band from the early 2000s to mid 2000s. Terrific band. I saw them live several times. I've seen John K. Samson live as a solo artist, a really profound one where he played this little church in Bayfield, Ontario, this tiny little town. And right on the edge of the kind of central park there's this little old white church. Holds a couple hundred people maybe. And somehow or other, John K. Samson was booked to play there solo. And so we went and we sat there. And before the show started, we were outside the church, just kind of hanging around. It's a really pretty little town. And there's a guy walking across the park with a guitar. And it's like, oh, that's John K. Samson. I don't know where he parked, but he's walking across right there right now with his guitar. Really strange, right? He's fantastic. A brilliant lyricist, brilliant songwriter. If you haven't listened to the Weaker Thans, you really should, because you're missing out if you haven't. And I wanted to talk about those lyrics. There's something so melancholy, so sweet, though, so soft about what he presents to the world in some of these lyrics. And I'm just really impressed by people that can do that. I am and have been a professional writer, but I struggle very much with lyrics. I struggle to do what a lot of my friends are capable of doing, which is bare their souls in lyrics, do that in an honest way. People like John K. Samson have this real ability to tell stories through their lyrics, but be clever about it, be beautiful about it. And I'm really impressed by lyricists. So maybe we'll do Lyrics of the Week as a running segment on this podcast. I'm not sure. But I wanted to talk about winter wheat. And maybe that's the lesson for you. Either you have the endurance to get through whatever it is, or maybe in the bigger picture, it's time to let go of something that no longer sustains you. Food for thought. And so thinking about life lessons, this is a scattered episode, and I hope that's okay. Thinking about life lessons got me to thinking about the Bible again. We've had a little bit of fun in semi-recent weeks with Bible stories. Did the book of Job, for example. Weird stuff. I'm thinking about life lessons. What is life trying to teach you? And I thought about the story of Jonah. Story of Jonah and the whale. You guys know the story of Jonah and the whale? There's some weird stuff in the Bible. There's some weird stuff that we just kind of take at face value anymore. Jonah and the whale is one of those, and I will attempt to provide a quick Cole's Notes version of this story as food for thought. Jonah was a prophet. Old Testament's full of prophets. Big prophets, little prophets. Jonah's one of the prophets. And he's a Hebrew guy, follows God as a prophet of Jehovah. One day, Jonah wakes up. God says, hey, Jonah, I want you to go to Nineveh. I want you to go to Nineveh, and I want you to tell them, I see what's going on over there. I don't like it. And they better change their ways, or I'm going to wreck that place. Nineveh is a Gentile city, a big city in biblical terms, it was a real city, and it was located in what is now Mosul, Iraq. I know you're all up on your Iraq geography. It's a city that existed in what is now Iraq in the Middle East. Big city, heart of the Assyrian Empire, which at the time was kind of a heavyweight. All right, so Nineveh is the capital of Assyria. Assyria is a heavyweight Gentile culture. And God says to Jonah, better get over to Nineveh and tell them what's up. And Jonah says, 9. Don't want to go there. Don't like Nineveh. Don't like the people. Don't like what they stand for. Don't like what they represent. I don't want to do that. I'm out of here. So Jonah attempts to run away from God's commandment. He says, I'm going to go to Tarshish instead. Tarshish or Tarshish is in the opposite direction. That's the way I'm going to go. So he sneaks down to the harbor and he gets himself passage on a ship, going to head to Tarshish. Slips onto the ship under cover of darkness, gets on the boat, and away they go. Snuck away from God. Problem is, God sees all. And so God whips up a storm. They're out on the high seas, heading for Tarshish. Big storm comes. Ship is being tossed to and fro, up and down. Sailors on board are panicking. They're freaking the F out. They're like, what is happening right now? And they all begin praying to their individual gods, whatever they may be. Joe Pesci, Flying Spaghetti Monster, whoever it is they pray to. Storm is not abating. They're like, what is up? We better lighten the load on this ship or we're going down. So they go down into the cargo hold. They start pulling up all the heavy stuff, throwing it overboard. But while they're down there, they find Jonah. Jonah is asleep. All this is going on. He's sleeping right through it. They wake him up. They're like, dude, what is your freaking problem? We're going down. Better start praying to whatever God you serve. Jonah's like, geez, I don't know, man. Storm keeps going. They drag Jonah up to the deck. Storm keeps going. They don't know what to do. They're praying to their gods. It's not helping. They decide to cast lots. We're going to figure out who's responsible for this. The way we're going to do that is we're going to cast lots. You get that a lot in the Bible. They casted lots for Jesus' clothes off the cross, for example. The guards, the soldiers. And it's basically kind of a game of chance. That's like pulling straws or whatever it is to decide who gets to win. A lot of different ways they used to cast lots back in the day. One of them was you had a bag of rocks with different symbols on them. And whoever pulls the right symbol wins the thing, or alternatively is responsible for the thing. So they're trying to find out whose fault this is, and they're going to cast lots. So let's pretend they had a bag of rocks, and whoever pulls the rock with the right mark on it is responsible for this problem. Jonah pulls the rock. Jonah, the lot is cast upon him. Now, the Bible story will tell you, not an accident. God did that on purpose. And so they're like looking at Jonah and they're like, you pulled the rock, dude. This is your fault. What's the scoop? Jonah says, all right, I'm a Hebrew. I serve Jehovah, the God who made everything. And one of my favorite verses in the entire Bible follows in this story because it's an example of horrendously bad storytelling. Jonah chapter 1, verse 10, talking about the sailors. Jonah says, I'm not quoting yet. Jonah says, I'm a Hebrew, I serve Jehovah. All right. Jonah 1:10. This terrified them, meaning the sailors, and they asked, what have you done? Now in parenthesis, they knew he was running away from the Lord because he had already told them so. It's like we forgot that detail. Who are you and what have you done? Oh, by the way, they knew. They knew that he was running from God because he said that. I forgot that detail, sorry. It's like, was parchment so expensive that you couldn't have rewritten that page and made it a little more coherent? Oh, by the way, there's a detail I forgot. Oh, I forgot this bit. He already told them he was running from God. And why include that at all? Like, it doesn't really matter, does it? It's just bad storytelling, folks, and this endures for thousands of years. I digress again. I love that verse, though. I love the little parenthesis. What have you done, they said to Jonah, that caused this storm to come? And what do we do about it? Jonah says, you better throw me overboard. The only way to save yourselves is to throw me overboard. But these sailors, though they're not Hebrew, are men of integrity. They're like, we're not going to throw you over, dude. You'll die. You'll drown in the water. Let's try to get back to shore. And so they angle the boat like the winter wheat, trying to get to shore. And the storm gets worse. Gales and blowing and rain and thunder and lightning. They can't get the ship to shore. They're going to go down. And so they say, well, Hebrew God Jehovah, this is not our fault, bro. and we're going to throw this dude over, and please have mercy on us because we don't want to kill him, but I don't know what choice we have. And he's saying to do it anyway. So they throw Jonah overboard, and then they offer a sacrifice to Jehovah, like just in case. Just going to underline this, just going to grease the track a little bit because we totally just killed this dude. But here's a sacrifice, so we didn't mean it. And away they go, and the storm immediately subsides. Jonah, he's sinking to the bottom. Jonah's going down. He's going to drown out there in the water. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Jonah's in this fog. He's suffocating. He's beginning to drown. He's beginning to get delirious. In his mind, he's like, I hope God does something. A giant fish comes, swallows him up. That's lucky. But of course, there's no luck in the Bible. God sent the fish, swallows up Jonah. Okay, terrific. But for 3 days and 3 nights, stop me if you've heard that before, Jonah's in the belly of the whale. And he's got a lot of time in there amongst the rotting fish and the stomach acid to think it over. And so he offers a repentance to God. He says, thank you so much for saving me in my hour of need. Appreciate that. And yes, you are God, and yes, you are all powerful, and surely do appreciate it. And so God commands the whale to vomit him up. Rough ride, rough ride. A lot of God's favorites in the Bible get a really rough ride. We talked about the story of Job, who God and Satan just decide to have a little fun with. Who gets to win this bet? And Job is going to be the sacrificial lamb throughout all of this back and forth with God and Satan. A horrendous experience. And, Jesus had kind of a rough ride too. So it is with Jonah. John the Baptist, a lot of these guys who were God's favorites had a rough go. Jonah's another one. So we're going to trap you in a whale for 3 days. Then we're going to vomit you up onto the beach. Blech. There's Jonah in the harsh light of day. Like, whoa, that was weird. God says, dude, go to Nineveh like I said. Jonah's like, I don't want to do this, but I will honor your commandment because I see what happens when I don't. Off he goes to Nineveh. And Nineveh, again, it's a pagan city, Gentile city, not worshiping the Hebrew God. And they have dancing. And they have sports betting, and they're a violent, aggressive, wicked people. Jonah doesn't like it. Walks into the city and starts telling everyone, look, here's the deal. You got 40 days. God's looking around this city, doesn't like what he sees. You got 40 days or we're going to wreck the place. And he's expecting pushback on this. He's expecting to be squashed by these evil Ninevites. But what happens surprises him. They begin to listen. Everybody begins to listen. He's like, really? Like God's going to wreck this joint if we don't fly right? Yeah. Okay. And then it gets back to the king. Hey, king, this guy down here says, God says we got 40 days to clean up or the whole place is going to get wrecked. And even the king of the Assyrian Empire, listens. I don't know a lot of kings who listen, but this king listened. And he's like, yeah, you know what? This place is kind of a den of iniquity. We have been kind of pricks globally. Maybe he's right, and I'm a little bit worried. So let us repent. Let us take off our robes that are so comfortable and put on sackcloth, which is itchy and it hurts. Let us flagellate ourselves. Let us not eat. No person, no animal shall eat or drink water until we have offered our full repentance to this Jehovah, to this God who's going to destroy us if we don't. And so the whole place bows down and repents and begins to fly right. And you would think Jonah would be amazed and impressed by this. And he's not. He's mad. Jonah's pissed. And he kind of sulks his way out of the city. And he says to God, see, this is why I didn't want to come here. Because I know that you are merciful. And I knew that if I came here and did this, instead of punishing these people who deserve to be punished for their dancing and their sports betting, instead of punishing them, you forgave them. You had mercy on them, and it's not right. They don't deserve this mercy, and I don't like the fact that I came here to help you deliver it. And so he puts out his lip, and he crosses his arm, and he builds himself a little shelter, and he sits down underneath it. And he's going to watch and see what happens to this city. Because maybe they're going to go backwards on that promise, and then they're going to get lit the F up. So he's watching this happen. He's under his shelter. And it's hot. It's Iraq. It's friggin' hot. It's dusty. And as he's sitting there, God provides a tree. God makes a plant to grow beside him and up and over top of him to provide a better shelter, to provide him some comfort. And Jonah's like, oh, I really like this tree. Really like this plant. God is merciful, and isn't that nice? It's lovely. And so Jonah, who's been, in the belly of a whale for 3 days, has gone into this horrendous city. He's been preaching at everybody. A lot of action. He's tired. He's mad at God. And he just drops to sleep. And as he's sleeping, God sends a worm. Little worm says, hey, worm, eat the roots of the tree. Worm eats the roots of the tree. Tree shrivels up. Jonah wakes up in the morning. Tree is dead. No shelter. And it's the hottest damn day. A blazing desert sun. God sends a vicious, harsh, hot wind from the east to torment and torture Jonah. Now Jonah's really pissed. He's like, why don't you just kill me? It's amazing to me how many of these servants of God ask God to kill them when stuff's not going their way. Sometimes maybe it's justified. In the case of Job, it's like, yeah, I get it. I get not wanting to hang around for this either. Jonah, he's pissed. It's hot. You killed my tree. What did the tree do to deserve that? Mean. It's like Louis C.K.'s story about the fig tree. Remember, we told that one too through Louis C.K.'s eyes. Jesus curses the tree because there's no figs on it. The time of figs is not yet. Jonah's mad that the tree's been destroyed. Jonah's mad that God seems to be sparing these people. Jonah's hot. His head's getting burnt. No shelter. And he says, I'd rather be dead. I'm angry about all of this and I'd rather be dead. God says, are you justified? Are you justified in your anger towards the Ninevites? Are you justified in your anger towards me about the tree? And Jonah says, yes. Yes, I am justified. This is bogus. And then God delivers the object lesson. He says, you're upset about the tree. Now, you didn't make the tree. You didn't raise the tree. You didn't nurture the tree. You didn't water the tree. You did nothing for that tree. And yet you lament for the tree. How would you expect me not to lament for the people of Nineveh? There's 120,000 people in that city. I made them, whether they believe it or not. And you expect me to have less mercy towards them than you would have me have towards this tree that you had nothing to do with? And it gets summed up in absolutely nothing. It ends right there. What? No closer, no resolve. The book of Jonah can be read in 10 minutes. It's only 4 little chapters. And that's the whole story. And you go, what? There's no closer. There's no epigrammatic turn. There's no point on the end. Just, you expect less mercy from me than you would give to that tree? And then you're just left to think about it. And we don't know what happened to Jonah after that. No idea. But what's the lesson? Right, here it is again. I mean, there's a zillion things you can pull from that little 4-chapter story about this prophet who won't listen. I've said before that life keeps giving you signs. Life gives you gentle signs, gentle nudges, until you reach a point where you're not listening, and then life just beats you over the head, right? You have been ignoring this feeling you have about a certain thing, but a job, but a relationship, whatever it is. It's like, you're supposed to do something or stop doing something. And it's like a person who drinks too much, let's say. And you need to stop it. You need to stop it with the alcohol, or you need to stop it with the drugs, or whatever it is. And you keep not doing that. You keep flirting with it. You keep playing the game. And then you pick up a DUI at the Burger King drive-thru, as Waylon Napadogan sang. And it's like, well, I gave you the nudges. You knew you had close calls. You know that your relationships are struggling. You know that you're in trouble here. You're not listening. We get a little louder. And then the DUI. Life hits you over the head. There's all these warning shots you don't pay attention to. Okay, maybe you'll pay attention to this, which is getting thrown overboard and eaten by a whale. Now are you going to listen? That's one life lesson you can pull. You can't outrun the stuff. Sooner or later, it's going to catch up to you, and better to deal with it before it reaches that kind of critical stage. And the big message that gets touted out of the book of Jonah is, where is your mercy? Where is your compassion, kid? You're supposed to be a representative of Jehovah, and all you want is punishment for these people. Where is your Christ consciousness? Where is your merciful spirit? Can you extend it to the people you don't like? Can you, as an Arsenal fan, reach across North London and shake the hand of a Spurs fan? You talk a good game, but in practice, is it actually there? Can you suspend your judgment and come at life and come at people from a perspective of mercy and compassion? And that's bloody relevant at this moment, kids. We watch this left versus right thing, watching it play out in real violent time in the States right now, but it filters into everywhere. It's like, can we reach across the aisle? Can we not? Can we extend to people we dislike the same sort of mercy that we would like to have extended to ourselves? That's a lesson from the book of Jonah. Is life trying to teach you that? Are you living in judgment of someone? Are you living in judgment of yourself? Are you getting caught up in the hate and fear and vitriol of the world? And is that blinding you to your human nature, to your human compassion? Maybe that's a thing that we can pull from book of Jonah. We don't know what the outcome was for him. The message was pretty clear. Have a little compassion. Spare a thought for other people. Try your best to make life better for others. That was one of the messages of John K. Sampson's Winter Wheat record. A lot of these hopeful stories. There was a quote I read in an interview with him around the time of this record. The interviewer from Vice magazine, not perhaps coincidentally called Jonah Byer, did an interview with John K. Sampson, and this is so him. He said, yeah, I'll do the interview, but it has to be done by postcard. We're not going to talk on the phone. I want you to send me a postcard with a question, and I'll answer with a postcard, and then you answer, and then I'll answer. And this took friggin' months, but okay. He's an eclectic. He's an artist. Let's do that. One of the questions was, how do we become better people? Because the stories on the Winter Wheat record are about people finding their way through repentance, finding their way through screwing it up, finding their way through trying to be better in the future. It's like, how do we become better people? John K. Sampson says, maybe we can't be better, but we can be more useful to each other wherever we are. Maybe the best we can do is show up in person and pay attention. That's kind of one of the messages of the book and the story of Jonah. Show up and be better for people. Jonah wasn't that, and what he got as a result was a rough ride from God, a chastening, and a very, very unpleasant experience because he wasn't willing to have compassion for other people that he didn't like. He wasn't willing to show up for people. And there's a lesson there. I think the primary and the most overlooked lesson of the story of Jonah is the worm. The tiny little worm can have such an enormous impact on people. In this case, maybe negative, maybe positive, depends on how you frame it. But if you ever feel as though you're too small to make a difference, remember always the worm in the story of Jonah, all right? And I don't know. There's a lot of life lessons there, and this is the question of the week. What is life trying to teach you right now? Life is trying to teach me always to just have a little friggin' faith. I perpetually find myself in this position of not knowing what I'm going to do or what I am doing. I find myself between contracts right now, trying to do something with this podcast, trying to follow the intuition. The other thing that life is trying to teach me at this moment is to enjoy it a little bit. I am about to embark on a trip to Sweden with Fresh Breath to play at a festival there. That's amazing. That's fantastic. That's an unbelievable opportunity and experience. And it's not like I haven't been appreciating that, but it's like I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself to find an income and to get back into the job market and do this and do that. But it's like I'm going to wait until after Sweden, and then it becomes this anxiety-inducing situation. What am I going to do for money? What's going on with my separation? What's going on in my house? What's going on with all this stuff? And it's like life is trying to teach me, dude, just chill, man. Relax. Everything's okay. You're going to Sweden. Enjoy that. Indulge that. Pull all of the joy and happiness you can out of that experience, out of those people. Stop pressurizing yourself so hard. Stop worrying so much. This is an amazing opportunity. Go and indulge it and experience and live it. It's been provided for you. There's a commandment from Yahweh to go to Sweden and have a wonderful time and play some friggin' music. And it's like, appreciate that. Right? Don't get wrapped up in what are you going to do after and what's the circumstances. No, just enjoy. And it's okay. It's okay to not know right now and to simply enjoy this amazing experience that's coming. Like that's a lesson that life is trying to teach me right now. Life is always trying to teach me to trust, and it's always trying to teach me to let go of my own anxiety. I don't know what life is trying to teach you right now, but again, there's a lot of lessons that have been pulled from these stories about the resilience of winter wheat, about this world is good enough because it has to be good enough. It's the world we've got. And how are you going to place yourself in it? How are you going to position yourself in this world? It's a lot of heinous stuff, but are you the winter wheat? And can you bend yourself toward that tiny lengthening of light? And can you listen to life, God, Jehovah? Can you listen to the nudges that are coming to you and follow them with trust? Can you follow them with faith? Can you approach life and the world from a position of compassion and mercy and understanding as opposed to a position of judgment? These are the lessons of Jonah. And can you be the little worm that makes a difference for somebody else? I know the worm one is a stretch, but this is just the question. What is life trying to teach you right now? Some of these things, something else. In your circumstances, can you look at what's troubling or difficult or heavy, and can you find within it some lesson about change, or some lesson about mercy, or some lesson about making a difference, or some lesson about turning away from what doesn't serve you and into what does? I can't answer that for you, but it becomes the question of the week. What is life trying to teach you right now? And so if you're struggling, or if you're having a great time, either way, stop and think, what's the lesson? What am I being taught right now? That it's okay to smile, that it's okay to indulge my art, that it's okay to take time away from the world and just focus on my creativity, that it's okay to take a break and heal my body, that it's okay to whatever it is, right? Or is there so much suffering in your life that you have to take a look at the root of that suffering? And is life trying to teach you to change something about that? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there in the context of winter wheat and the story of Jonah. The one thing I can tell you is that good music helps in all circumstances. And real quick, this song of the week for this week, the first week of June 2026, is Keep It to Yourself by an artist called Love Spells. That's right. Keep It to Yourself by an artist called Love Spells. Love Spells is a dude, a young and supremely talented dude called Sertagan Harris. I don't know if I'm saying that. Is it Tejan? It might be Tejan. That sounds better. Sertagan Harris, a dude from Houston, Texas, who has been putting out these songs a little bit under the radar, but that radar is honing in very, very quickly. And how do you describe this? I'm going to read from a review of some of his work, which I think provides a better summary, a better description than I can off the cuff. Love Spells marries ethereal vocals, delicate percussion, and soothing guitar riffs into a dreamy and nostalgic fusion of indie rock, psychedelia, and dream pop. Love Spells is defined by passionate romanticism, his songs revolving around themes of love, intimacy, and heartbreak. Yeah, that's true. What I'm saying is that it's just a vibe. This song, Keep It to Yourself, is just a vibe. And it's just this really slow, sensual kind of groove. This music is a really interesting amalgam of indie pop, shoegaze, and soul. There's a soul undercurrent through all of this. It's just this slow, dreamy groove. But you find yourself moving. You find your head beginning to move. It's just got such a really beautiful pocket. Very understated, very minimal instrumentation. And the vocals, I couldn't quite sort out what was happening here because the vocals, I thought it was a woman. I thought it was a female singer because it's very high register. I thought, okay, he's the writer and he brings in a vocalist. I don't know. Turns out it's him as far as I can tell. Very Prince vibes here. A lot of people in the YouTube comments reference Prince. And it sounds like that. So it's this kind of high, almost a falsetto vocal. And I thought at first it was a woman. It's not, it's him. Okay, cool, man. That's hard to do. That's hard to do, but it's very dreamy, very understated, but it's just got a vibe. This pop, soul, indie vibe to it, which I really, really like. And I'll just offer you some YouTube comments to describe it for us. Prince vibes on some of these verses. Very different music, though. True. Gorgeous, sophistopop soul. There you go. Sophistopop soul. Somebody else says, so happy to find you before you blow up. There were a few references to that, too. It made me think of Somber. Remember we talked, I don't know, last year at some point about Somber? I had seen Somber on Saturday Night Live. First exposure to him. And then all of a sudden, he's just everywhere on the radio, kind of catching him as he was blowing up. This artist, Love Spells, I think the potential is most certainly there. And he's got a big tour coming, including a date in Toronto, actually. He's going to be in Toronto September 30th at the Drake Hotel. So you can catch this dude, perhaps before blowing up, at a little venue like the Drake, which is kind of cool, man. And I don't know what else to say about this. I've had a lot of trouble kind of getting information, but he's dropped some songs. They're very popular. And yeah, there's something happening here. You may already be hearing this song, Keep It to Yourself, on the radio. I'm not sure. That is Love Spells, Keep It to Yourself. Just a super soulful indie rock, dream pop, vibey tune. And I dig it a lot. And it will be on the referenced on the podcast 2026 playlist on Spotify. If you have not yet listened to that, do it, because I can't play the music on the friggin' show, but I can put it on a playlist, and so you can therefore hear it. I know some of you have, and I appreciate that. Time to cut this thing off. It's getting to be too long. Thank you ever so much for your feedback on the Arsenal episode last week. Do appreciate that. And I'm just going to implore you, help a brother out with a rating and review on Apple or on Spotify. Share these episodes, please, if you're getting something from them. I'm really trying to grow this show. I'm still hanging in 7 years later, still trying to make something of this. Thank you for being along on the ride. join me on Substack, Semi-Eloquent podcast.substack.com. That way you can join my newsletter, and I'll start sending you stuff like the video for that new song by Love Spells right to your damn inbox. And it's a way of communicating back and forth. I'm trying to take some control over my communicating with all of you beyond the show itself. Please join me on Substack. Ratings and reviews most welcome. Sharing the episodes most welcome. Send me questions. Send me question of the week questions, okay? That way we can begin a little dialogue, you and me, back and forth, and I don't feel as though I'm just speaking into the void all the time. Thank you ever so much for listening. I hope you got something from this episode, and if you did, please tell me. If life is trying to teach you something, tell me that too, because I'm curious to know. I know it's certainly working on me, and I'm doing my best. Thank you again. Good things happen when you put yourself out there, and I'll be back very soon with perhaps another little adventure. Cheers for now, kids.